Your wife is not going to apologize. That's not how women work. Yes, you were right, but because you were right, you are the villain. Every fight, every divorce is caused by the same thing. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why men are always more powerful than women and why that means you are destined to lose every argument.
This is terrible new information. I thought I was winning every argument with my husband because I was right and he was wrong, but I just put the camera at his height, so how he sees me, and I realized this is not the case at all. I'm not winning because I'm right. I'm winning because how could you take me seriously? I look like I should have cartoon steam coming out of my ears. Oh, I'm so mad right now. I would be choking back laughter if I was arguing with me. I'm not winning on merit. I'm winning because I look helpless and silly. This is how he sees the whole world? No wonder the guy's so confident. Of course he gives up in 10 seconds and kisses my forehead. I look like a small woodland creature trying to tell a giant. Yeah, hey giant, I've got something to tell you.
It is very rare that a man ever actually loses an argument with a woman. Most often, he just retreats and stops arguing. The woman might think that she's won, but in reality, he's just given up. He may have started out engaging with her, countering her points, making rational arguments, trying to present his case logically. But what often happens is that a woman's behavior deteriorates. She becomes so erratic, so emotional, that it causes him to withdraw because when she's in that state, continuing to argue feels wrong. He's not conceding, he is humoring the woman. Essentially, she becomes too small to compete with. Her tone, her emotional volatility, her need to be right, it begins to seem childish, which makes him feel like he is fighting with a toddler, which just doesn't seem fair. He withdraws, but it's not because he's threatened or feels beaten. No, he was disturbed by the mismatch. He no longer sees her as a worthy rival. Most men have an innate aversion to anything that doesn't seem like it is a fair fight. And so at some point, when her behavior is just going off the walls, continuing to argue with her feels cruel, and so he withdraws as an act of mercy. For most relationships between men and women, the power imbalance is just too big to ignore. He's taller, he's stronger, he's more emotionally controlled, often he's the financial provider, he provides the boundaries and discipline in the house, and usually he is less dependent on affection and closeness. The truth is that in these dynamics, the man usually holds all of the cards, and that's the real reason why he puts his weapons down. But this begs the question, if the power imbalance between men and women is so vast, how are you meant to resolve conflict with your wife or girlfriend? What's a man to do? Because if he fights back with full force, he's a bully. But if he just capitulates, he loses her respect. Men don't know what to do. How are you meant to be in conflict with a woman? What are the rules? In one form or another, this confusion is the reason why you got divorced, why you and your ex-girlfriend broke up, or why you and billions of other men across the planet had an argument with your partner last week. Fundamentally, you just don't understand how you are meant to compete with a woman. You know how to compete with other men, and women know how to compete with other women. But when men and women clash, it's like they're not even playing the same game. It's like putting a basketball player and a golfing pro next to each other, blowing the whistle and saying, okay, start. How are they meant to do that? What game are they meant to play? What are the rules? This is my point. It's almost impossible for men to actually argue with women because you're playing different games. Do you understand how women compete? Do you know the rules? Do you understand the game? Who wins? Who loses? How you score points? Because if you think it is the same way that men compete, you are sorely mistaken. Male competition is very straightforward. There's very little ambiguity. You either win or you don't. The battlefield is external and every man is required to play by the rules. We don't tolerate cheating or dirty play. And there is usually an inherent respect given to your competitor. Of course, you try and win, but if you lose, you shake hands, you give him his dues, and then you train harder so that you can beat him next time. And the purpose of all of this is not just ego inflation, it's about creating a hierarchy of competence, establishing authority and leadership. We're trying to sort out where everybody stands. And best of all, there is a clear end to the conflict. At some point, a winner is declared and then life moves on. If you want to know what male conflict looks like, it's sport. But if you want to understand what female conflict looks like, it's reality TV. There's no respect for your competitor, and there's certainly no end. The competition doesn't just stop at some point when the whistle is blown. You watch the Housewives or one of those reality real estate shows, you'll see that they are able to drag female conflict out for seasons. Female competition is indirect. They very rarely openly challenge each other. It's not about force, it's about perception, status, emotional control, social alliances. And the weapons are completely different. Gossip, vulnerability, even compliments can all be turned into weapons. And for women, plausible deniability is essential. The most effective strike you can land upon an enemy is one where you pretend that you're their friend. And women feel triumphant not through any external measure of goals scored, but from being the one who is socially included. The winner is subject to democracy. It's a popularity contest. And because there's no reference to objective standards, establishing a hierarchy is not the purpose. It's about conquering emotional and social territory. That means that the conflict never ends. Things are always shifting, which leads women to be constantly on edge, unsure of themselves and of their position. It creates a high level of anxiety and a debilitating fear of being judged. Do you see how different this is? Why conflict resolution is almost impossible? The two of you are playing by completely different rules. So what does this mean for you and your relationship? How are you meant to resolve conflict with a woman? That's what I'm going to talk about in this video. But first, I want to quickly thank everybody for the birthday wishes. October is my birthday month. I'm turning 38. And to celebrate, there is a 38% discount on my Patreon. If you sign up, you get early access and the extended versions of all of my videos.
So much in women that drives me nuts is women who can't apologize.
Oh, accountability.
But they cannot own up at all. Like they refuse. It's so much so that a guy that I dated before I met my husband, I remember we had some type of argument and I said, I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have said something that way. And he almost passed out because he was like, no woman in his life had ever said, I'm sorry.
Of course.
And he was like, what the hell?
Of course.
But I see women, even my friends will have a fight with their boyfriend or their husband. And I'll have to tell them, listen, you need to apologize because sometimes it's going to be you.
Most men can recall that one argument where it was absolutely clear, black and white, that they were correct and their wife was wrong. And they would have loved to receive an apology and they've been waiting. You've probably got an example in your own life that you're thinking about right now, thinking, man, an apology would be nice. Well, let me ask you, how long have you been waiting for that apology? A couple of weeks? 20 years? It very rarely happens. Women do not readily offer up apologies because an apology means that there is some kind of conclusion, a shared understanding of what has occurred. But that's not likely to happen. Men and women are very rarely on the same page because, as we've established, they're playing by different rules. It is rare for a couple to even agree about what they are arguing about, let alone in determining which one of them is at fault. You see, men come into arguments expecting clear rules, logic, and rationality, and they are looking for a path to a resolution. But women bring an entirely different toolkit. They come in analyzing tone and subtext and emotional momentum. For them, it's not so much a debate as a relational power struggle. So you've got the man, he's bringing in facts and examples and consistency, believing that the better argument is going to prevail. But this backfires on him because for her, it's not about the facts, it's about the emotions. And the more rational the arguments that he's presenting, emotionally, the more cold he appears. She freaks out because he's not playing by the rules, and so she emotionally escalates, ripping the situation out of the realm of facts and pitching the battle on ground that she feels more comfortable with. It's truly a genius strategy because when she does this, she no longer has to prove him wrong. She just has to make him seem like he is uncaring and cruel. When she uses emotional tactics like crying and escalating, she has effectively changed what the two of you are arguing about because it's no longer a disagreement over facts. Suddenly, you're arguing about whether or not you are an emotional jerk who doesn't care about what she's feeling. And most men are extremely slow to catch on to what's going on here. He thought they were making progress, that he was presenting his case really well, but suddenly she is sobbing. And he finds himself apologizing and withdrawing, not because he thinks that he's wrong, but because he's overwhelmed and confused and he just wants all the chaos to stop. You can see how effective this female strategy has been in that it puts men in this double bind. If he pushes back against her, then he's a bully. But if he gives in, he's weak and emasculated. And so he's trapped in this game where winning makes him feel like a villain, but losing makes her lose respect for him. The entire terrain of the argument begins to feel like one giant psychological booby trap. Men don't know which direction to go, nowhere feels safe. And eventually, a lot of men just give up. They don't believe that there is a right way to engage with a woman like this. If every single move that you make can be reframed as you being wrong, then what's the point in trying? She has created a learned helplessness inside the man. He stops fighting not because he thinks that he's wrong, but because he's come to believe that the game is unwinnable. But in the aftermath, so much damage has been done. Because the two of you are in completely different realities. She might think that she's won the argument, she feels vindicated, but you know that you didn't lose the game, you just opted out. And now you've lost respect for her, you see her differently. Before, she was an equal, she was a worthy competitor. You didn't mind having a spirited debate because you were confident that rationality was going to win out. But when you see that all she has is emotion, well then suddenly you view her less as a partner and more as a child to be managed. And let me be clear, I'm not saying that all women do this or this is an illustration of how all relationships function, but even if you're dating a high quality woman, if she does lose track of herself, this is the pattern that's likely to unfold. If she does slip into toxicity, this is what it's going to look like. But any woman who thinks that she is powerful because she got her boyfriend or husband to give in during an argument, she needs to check her assumptions because she has a fundamental misunderstanding of what power is. Just because you're screaming and having a tantrum and ultimately getting your way, that does not make you powerful. It's actually the person who was calm and restrained and showed tolerance who maintains the upper hand. He saw your emotional escalation and he chose to not engage. It's like him giving you his umbrella during a rainstorm. Yes, you might be the one who's dry, but it's ultimately still his umbrella. In relational conflicts, men suppress their anger, they monitor their tone, and they restrain their emotional expression. Not because they are weak, but because they know what the consequences would be if they unleashed their full strength. He knows if he was to say what he's really thinking, the relationship would not survive. There is a very deep asymmetry here. Men are forced into self-censorship, not just to preserve peace, but also to protect himself, because he knows if he was to express his emotions the same way that she does, without any restraint or self-control, he would very quickly be labeled abusive, toxic, dangerous. The double standard here is enormous. A woman can be emotional, reactive, even cruel, but all of her behavior is going to be dismissed and justified. Oh, that's just her feelings. She's just having an emotional moment. If men started acting the way that women did, even just 10% of it, they would be labeled unstable. The unacknowledged truth is that in our society, men are held to a much higher behavioral standard. This is a privilege that women will not admit that they have, but it is absolutely true. They have the freedom to act really badly and then just blame it on their emotions. In practical terms, what this means is that in individual relationships, it is typically the man who carries the emotional responsibility of that dynamic. Just like I explained in my Rational Pig video, I'll put a link to that one below if you haven't seen that yet, it always falls upon the strong to care for the weak. And so what is the solution? Truthfully, women need to do better. The sad fact of the matter is that this toxic behavior gets excused because it is gendered. There is no way to justify throwing tantrums, abandoning rationality, and emotionally escalating in the middle of a disagreement. It is childish behavior and it needs to be condemned. But because it so strongly presents in women, this behavior gets the de facto protection of feminism, as though this kind of behavior is inherently justifiable because it's most commonly coming from women. I don't buy it, and I hope that you don't either. either. We need to raise our standards. We need to expect better. If you are in a disagreement with a woman and you are sticking to the facts, trying to find a resolution, and the woman that you're arguing with just says whatever comes to her mind, she's changing the topics, she's emotionally escalating, that's not okay. It's childish. And I understand my words are strong and I have a male bias, but I don't care. There is a right and a wrong way to resolve conflict, and women on the whole need to do better. Having said that, my advice to men to make your life easier is to assume that every argument that you are having with your girlfriend or wife is not about what you think it is. It's not about the chores. It's not about that look that she thinks you gave her. It's about her fears. She is scared of losing connection to you. Do not assume just because she's complaining about one thing that that's actually what she's upset about. I'm not letting women off the hook. They need to do a better job of identifying what it is that they're feeling. They need to grow in their self-awareness, but you can help in this process. And I'm going to spend the rest of this video giving you some practical tips so that you approach conflict with a woman less like a debater and more like a translator. If you'd like to see that video, please come and join me on Patreon. That's where I post the full-length versions of my videos, including a lot of the practical tips, a lot of the nuance on how to actually use this information to improve your relationships. There is a 38% discount in honor of my birthday month. It's incredible value. We've got hundreds of videos. I'd love to see you over there.